Hello everyone, Juxtaposition here. Today's video will be entitled Menendez Mendacity. It's kind of a mop-up, part 2 of my concealment pornography video. Anyway, there's just so much minutia involved with the Jose and Kitty Menendez case, where the two sons, Lyle of Princeton University and Eric of Calabasas High School, and maybe his last year at Beverly Hills High School. If you can give me the dates on that, I'd appreciate it. What I want to tell you is I had a chance to go back and listen to, they had 2 trials, they had 3 juries. You see, on one hand, the Jose Menendez case is completely and utterly wrapped up with CIA, with pacification and control, with Jose Menendez being selected from a young age, as a teenager, through his connections with the Batista regime through his parents, and being selected and given free education in the United States at University of Illinois, Carbondale, and then later at Queens College, New York, where he worked washing dishes at Club 21, which is no easy job to get. So he was always fast-tracked. So, and then he ends up being brutally murdered in a double shotgun barrage of buckshot, along with his wife. So, given my history with studying violent murders in Beverly Hills, 90210, I can assure you that, my first assumption is going to be this is a military hit, right? And you do know that the murder of Jose Menendez, they didn't really live in that house. That house was a rental, temporary, for Michael Jackson, for Elton John. Allegedly, Prince lived there. The artist formerly known as Prince. He lived at that home, 722 North Elm Drive, Nightmare on Elm Street, except it's called a drive. And it's off Sunset Boulevard. And there are so many CIA fingerprints all over the Menendez murder. I mean, I'll lose count. It has lots in common with the Sharon Tate and Abigail Folger and Lino LaBianca murders, although there's some striking differences. There's differences. I mean, in that case, you have 7 people bayoneted to death. And in the case, one was shot with M16 rifles to death and bayoneted just once. That was Stephen Parent. He's the only person that didn't work for the CIA. The only person who didn't work for the CIA was murdered by 4 M16 rifle shots, and then had his wristwatch taken out by a M7 bayonet. But the other 6 people all worked for the CIA, and they were all bayoneted by NATO M7 bayonets attached to M16 rifles. It's very similar to the Jose and Kitty Menendez case, because you see, the thing is that there were no shell casings left at the scene. They were all collected. That is extremely professional, because that's exactly what happened at the Cielo Drive scene. There were no shell casings whatsoever at the Cielo Drive crime scene. And there were seven rifle bullets dug out of 3 victims. Stephen Parent had 4 bullets. Wojtek Frykowski had 2 bullets. And Jay Sebring, who's really Tom Coomer, had 1 bullet that ripped through his stomach, and the bullet was actually tucked away in his shirt. It didn't exit his shirt. Anyway, that's 7 bullets that were found in the autopsies and 0 shell casings. And at the Kitty and Lyle Menendez shotgun blast, there's a kind of a question mark as to how many shotgun blasts. Looking more like 16 shotgun blasts, 10 into Kitty and 6 into Lyle, and both headshots on both people, so they're unrecognizable as human beings. And there are 0 shotgun cartridges remaining in the family room where they were murdered, whilst they ate ice cream and strawberries. Now, they had some friends over from Calabasas. They had a couple over earlier in that evening. It's estimated that they were murdered around 10 p.m. So, and the boys were staying there. I believe Lyle had a bedroom in the garage unit, and that Eric had a bedroom in the main house upstairs. But the boys had gone out to see the new James Bond film, which was sold out, so they saw Batman at the Century Plaza theaters. At least that's their story. Then their story was that that they wanted to get a fake ID for Eric, who's only 18 years old, because they wanted to go to the cheese factory and order drinks at the bar. And, you can't do that unless you're 21, right? So they returned to 722 North Elm Drive to get the fake ID, which apparently Eric forgot to take with him, right? And it was there that they discovered their parents' dead bodies in the family room. All right? And you should know that they were never, ever arrested for that crime for over 6.5 months. I'm going to round up, it's almost 7 months. So, in other words, they were interviewed by police. Their alibi was checked out. I believe they did produce the ticket stub, half of a ticket stub for their Century Plaza Batman film, which they all agreed they'd seen that before, so it was the second time they'd seen Batman. But the Beverly Hills Police Department really didn't suspect them as murderers. Now, it's really important for you to know that I'm just not completely biased. I mean, I looked into Carolco Pictures, all right? And Carolco Pictures is a CIA operation. And I want you to know that there's been a tremendous job to conceal the reality of Carolco Pictures. And I'm just going to read you a few things and set you straight so that you don't get confused here. If you Wikipedia Carolco Pictures, first of all, the name originated from a CIA Panamanian company from decades ago, and then they reused the name. That's what they always do. They reuse names. Anyway, it's listed as a Carolco Pictures, Incorporated, an American independent studio that existed from 1976 through 1995. And you know that it had subsidiaries, right? Anyway, it was founded by Mario Kassar, who's from Palestine, and Andrew G. Vajna from Istanbul, Turkey, except that's not his real name. His real name is Andras Weidman. He's Jewish, but he goes by Andrew Vajna. He has an Asian wife, and they had a wig company in Hong Kong. So just if you're wondering who's purveying porn in America, it's people that go to Yale University, Harvard University, or own wig companies or come from Palestine. That's who owns, those clubs on Sunset Boulevard, like the Whiskey A Go-Go or the Viper Club. Those are all owned by CIA operatives, okay? And usually they're from Israel, okay? Eddie Nash, he's from Jerusalem, and he owned, I believe, a minimum of 6 of the clubs on Sunset Boulevard that John Lennon went to most of them. The who's who of Hollywood. And that knucklehead came from Jerusalem, Israel. Eddie Nash, not his real name. He's Jewish, but he's Christian Jewish. He's a Christian Jewish person. All right, so if you read the details about Carolco Pictures, you get that Mario Kassar and Andrew Vajna are the founders of it, okay? And they hired Peter Hoffman, a Jewish man who went to the Yale Law School, to be their chief executive officer and to handle acquisitions and mergers for them, because they have CIA banking support. And they have produced such films as the Rambo franchise, at least Rambo 2 on. I don't think they did Rambo 1, but they did Rambo 2 on. They did Arnold Schwarzenegger's Total Recall, Terminator 2, Judgment Day, Basic Instinct with Michael Douglas and Sharon Stone, is that right? And then Universal Soldier, Cliffhanger, which again I think is Sylvester Stallone, Stargate. They also did Cutthroat Island, which was supposed to be a comeback film. And you know, these films require hundreds of millions of dollars because of the location costs and what you have to pay a Michael Douglas or an Arnold Schwarzenegger or a Sylvester Stallone. Sylvester Stallone was a board of director member of Carolco Pictures. He sat on the board of directors, as did Mario Kassar and Andrew Vajna, and I believe Peter Hoffman also had a seat on the board. Now, the company is totally controlled by the CIA, okay? It's not controlled by Mario Kassar, and it's not controlled by Andres Weidman. But on paper it is, okay? And what you should know is one of their subsidiary entities was IVE, International Video Entertainment. And they purchased that company on or around 1985. They purchased it from Noel C. Bloom. That's Noel, Noel-C, Bloom, B-L-O-O-M. Noel Bloom, a Jewish man whose father, Bernie, got into the pornography business and then turned the business over to his son, Noel, who lives in Oxnard, and that is why they have an office in Newbury Park, because it's next door to Oxnard and Thousand Oaks, but it's right up the road from Calabasas on the Ventura Highway, Highway 101, and also known as the Hollywood Freeway. So what you want to know is that there's a distinction between the Arnold Schwarzenegger, Sylvester Stallone, Michael Douglas, Oliver Silverstein Stone producing The Doors through Carolco Pictures. And remember, Carolco Pictures does the production. They handle the money to make the bills get paid on all these films, but they don't do distribution. Distribution's handled by Time Warner, Warner Brothers, or Columbia Pictures, or Paramount Pictures, or RCA. Okay, that's who controls the radio frequency and the theater chains. Okay, Carolco Pictures does not own the theater chains, and they don't own the radio frequencies. So they only do what's called executive producing. In other words, they're a broker. They're a broker, and they can produce porn. They can produce children's entertainment. And guess what? They do. They do all those things. They do adult entertainment. They do action films. They do porn. Now, Jose Menendez was hired by Peter Hoffman, who undoubtedly knew him from RCA, Radio Corporation of America, and Mario Kassar and Andrew Vajna had to approve that purchase. And they offered him a potential annual salary of $1.1 million. It was later up to $1.35 million a year. Base salary was 50%, and his bonus was 50%, approximately. The employment contract was renewed once. They only worked together for exactly 3 years, okay? Just under 3 years. So it's not a long employment. You should know, and this is very important, and it's completely overlooked by all the so-called experts on the Menendez case, including all the imbecile lawyers and judges who are associated. There's Stanley Weisberg. I'm going to point him out for his fully compromised judge. Shouldn't believe anything he says. Anyway, what I want to tell you is that the concealment is what you're not told. And one of the things you're not told is that there were numerous employee benefits that Jose got besides his $1.1 to $1.35 million annual salary. And that is, they were to the company was to pay for a $5 million life insurance, which presumably he would name his family or his family trust as the beneficiary. That never got issued because it was Jose's fault. Jose, even though he was reminded numerous times to take a paramedical examination, he wouldn't do it. He never did it, even though he's reminded many times, and didn't do it. So that policy didn't get issued. However, a $15 million policy, which protected Carolco Pictures and protects Mario Kassar and Andrew Vajna, that was issued, and Jose Menendez did take a paramedical exam for that. And then there's a cover story that he thought that that exam would apply to the other policy, but it didn't. And so the other policy never got issued. And you should know that he was also granted 300,000 stock options known as stock grants that vest on a time schedule. In other words, the longer that he stays with the company, it goes from zero vesting to 100% vesting. And I don't know, I haven't seen the agreement, but normally that's 6 years to 10 years. That if you're with the company, your stock options vest, like 10% a year, that kind of thing. And Jose Menendez, at the time of his death, was only at the company for barely 3 years. So, when I say that the value of his stock was $20 a share and he has 300,000 shares, that's $6 million that Jose Menendez has in the kitty. And but because he was murdered on August 20th, 1989, he was barely at the company, barely for 3 years. So at the most, that $6 million might be worth 1.8 to $2 million at the most. And so I'm here to tell you that I think that Peter Hoffman and Roger Smith, who's the chief financial officer, who testified under oath, even though he did commit perjury a number of times, and I'll tell you exactly when, that I know he committed perjury. And there are other times I don't know if he told the truth or not. But he did say he didn't like Jose Menendez, and he thought he was a mean-spirited person, and engaged in a lot of unethical type behavior with the employees. Is that Roger Smith intended to resign his position on September 1st, 1989, which is 10 days, after Jose Menendez was murdered, because Roger Smith had a 2-year contract. He was offered a 3-year contract from Live Entertainment. Live Entertainment is one of the subsidiaries of Carolco Pictures. It's IVE, International Home Video. They renamed it. In other words, Noel Bloom, that was his company, and he called it International Video Entertainment, along with Caballero Home Video and Artisan Pictures and another half dozen video companies. And so what you should know is Live Entertainment, all they did is put an L in front of IVE. So remember, everything with CIA is an acronym. IVE stands for International Video Entertainment. What they did is they put an L in front of that, and it became Live Entertainment. It went from IVE to Live Entertainment. Isn't that clever? But what you should know is that the contract for the chief financial officer, Roger Smith, who went to Harvard University, but doesn't have a CPA credential, it doesn't really have any financial background in any way, but he's a money launderer, so who cares, right? And his contract was scheduled to expire on August 31st, 1989, and it hadn't been renewed at the time of Jose's murder. So he said under oath that his intention was to go in to Jose Menendez on September 1st and resign his position as CFO. But because Jose Menendez was murdered, Carolco Pictures, Mario Casar, Andrew Vajna, gave Jose Menendez's CEO job to Roger Smith. So in other words, the chief financial officer stepped into the shoes of Jose Menendez, who was only rolling into the office between 9:30 and 10 o'clock in the morning, taking lunch and getting out by 4:45 to 5 p.m. He was never there after 5 p.m. So he's only putting 6 hours of work in a day. He's making $1.3 million a year in 1989. He has $6 million worth of stock grants that are vesting. The longer he lives, the more valuable that is, the more expensive it is to the company. He also has a bundle of money in his deferred compensation account, which has not yet been paid out. And so besides the $15 million of tax-free life insurance on Jose's life, if he were to die, that saves the company a minimum of $4 million on the stock grants, because they just lapse. They lapse on death. They're terminated upon death. and Jose Menendez's estate would only get the fully vested portion, which I'm telling you, it's probably under $1 million. But I'm going to say, for purposes of my video, since I haven't studied the documents and the documents are not available, else I would study them, I'm going to say the maximum they could be worth is $2 million. But that's a lot less than $6 million. All right, and the deferred compensation. Not entirely sure if that's legally vests 100%. I don't know what it is. Maybe that's his bonuses from previous years. Maybe he deferred half of his bonuses. In which case, let's say it's 3 years at $250,000. So let's have $750,000 that they might owe him at death. It would all be income taxable and tax deductible to the company. But this is all glossed over in the Vanity Fair articles written by Dominic Dunn, who you really shouldn't believe anything he says. And it does appear that the following: Lyle Menendez never attended any high schools in California. He went to the Princeton Day School in New Jersey, and he went to Princeton University. He did work for one summer of 1988 for his father at Live Entertainment, working with Roger Smith and working with his father, Jose. And also, he came into the office late and he left early, usually by 4, to go play tennis. And wasn't particularly liked, but I mean, not too many people liked Jose Menendez. And I'm starting to think that Mario Casar and Andrew Vajna and Peter Hoffman were looking to get rid of Jose Menendez. And what better way to do it than to have him murdered? Because you know he's not going to die voluntarily, right? But look at how much money they save. They'll save a minimum of $4 million on the stock grants that they don't have to award because he would never have vested. They would never have vested. And they would get $15 million of tax-free life insurance, which we paid to Bankers Trust Company in New York, but they owe them $75 million. So now that gets dropped to $60 million. Like that. So there's $19 million of free money. Plus, I don't think they necessarily have to pay all the deferred compensation out. That could be another $750,000. So, it's starting to look like there's at least $20 million of reasons for Carolco Pictures to want Jose Menendez to go bye-bye. We know that Noam Bloom doesn't like Jose, and he's the porn person. And when I say that Noam Bloom is still in charge of porn, even though he sold his company to Carolco for a boatload of money up front, he's still getting paid as a producer. He didn't lose his job. He's still working for the company. It's just he gave up his equity in Caballero Home Video. But you see, he's the single most important person at Carolco Pictures, and he works for Live Entertainment. He doesn't even work for Carolco Pictures. He works for Jose Menendez in Live Entertainment, and he's the single most important person because porn is more profitable than Total Recall or Rambo, the Rambo franchise, or Basic Instinct or Terminator 2, or Michael Douglas's Basic Instinct. Porn is like a diesel motor. It's steady as can be. And I personally believe, besides the retail annuity cash flow from retail customers who are buying, remember, VHS videos, then we went to DVDs, and today we're on digital, download off Netflix, platforms where it's digitized. Porn is now digitized. But back when Jose Menendez was killed, there were video stores. You could go and get your VHS video cassettes, and that was a big expense to producing home video entertainment, right? And they had a child entertainment division, and they had an adult entertainment division, and Caballero Home Video was their hardcore porn division, and it was extremely profitable. And I believe that the CIA pays extra money on top of whatever the customers do. And I have a subscriber who clued me in on some things. I'm bringing you this this kind of content on the retail platform for the internet, right? But you do know that there are other levels, right? There's a dark web internet, and they could have some porn that would be considered illegal. They could have child trafficking. They could have snuff videos. They could have Guantanamo Bay, where Ron DeSantis was participating in enhanced interrogation techniques, both at Guantanamo Bay Detention Center and in Fallujah, in Iraq, on the Euphrates River, Fallujah, and that could be broadcast into the National Security Chamber or a CIA operation or a contractor for any one of the, you name, the alphabet soup contractors. They could be watching illegal porn or human executions and tortures on the internet. It's not commonly available, right? And they also can, of course, be communicating with themselves, command and control, banking and money laundering instructions, or command and control facilities like the chemtrails. Maybe that's being done in the dark web. I don't know. But I do know that there are levels of pornography and there are levels of communication radio frequency. And I don't know all the levels, but what I'm saying is that one of my viewers seems to be pretty hip to distribution techniques. And since we've all gone to digitize now for porn, that would include, all methods of war, all methods of communication are now digitized. And they just want to take our banking system to that level. It's almost there now. We have digital money now. But what I'm saying is that there's another layer of clandestine services besides the one that you're watching, and listening to my speech. Anyway, I want to tell you that this really this guy just drives me crazy. I must call him an odious person. Stanley Weisberg, who was the Superior Court judge for the two Menendez trials. You do realize that first they had a hung jury. It was a mistrial, ruled a mistrial. And then they had a second trial, which took 6.5, 7 years. And then the second trial, after they gutted the defense, which I was not impressed with the Leslie Abramson defense, by the way. I think she was in on the fix, right? She pled them guilty, with reason. Then they're going to lose, right? I mean, what kind of a defense lawyer are you that you don't defend your client? That said, I am impressed with Leslie Abramson. She's only 4'11". She's a little dwarf. And she asked some good questions. On the other hand, she made objections when she should have been put into a Guantanamo prisoner cage, because she's working for the prosecution. This is why I detest lawyers, because they're all in on it. The prosecutor and the defense lawyers, they're on the same team. Leslie Abramson, by the way, who went to Queens College at the exact same time that Jose Menendez went to Queens College, that she went to university with Jose Menendez, and she ends up representing Eric, the younger son. Leslie Abramson, from the Bronx, New York, she went to Queens College when Jose Menendez was getting a CPA and accounting degree at Queens College. There's Leslie Abramson. So, look, she's part of this program. And she came out of the public defender's office. So she didn't go to Harvard and she didn't go to Yale. Like Carolco Pictures, their CEO went to the Yale Law School, Peter Hoffman. He's the CEO of a porn company, and he went to Yale. And then who's the chief financial officer, babysitter for Jose Menendez? Well, that's Roger Smith, and he went to Harvard. So, and that's a pornography company, exclusively. They only do porn. So you've got a situation where you got Harvard's in charge of porn, and then Yale's in charge of porn plus child's entertainment. I mean, and Arnold Schwarzenegger, Terminator, and Oliver Silverstein Stone's The Doors, and Michael Douglas's Basic Instinct, and Sylvester Stallone's Rambo, and child's entertainment, and they own a porn subsidiary called Live Entertainment. So before Stanley Weisberg succeeded in getting 2 juries hung, and the third jury was unanimous guilt for the Menendez brothers, life imprisonment. But before he hung 2 juries on the Menendez case, unable to convict them, he was involved with the Rodney King case, which you remember Rodney King was beaten to a pulp by the Los Angeles Municipal Police Department, and they had, I believe, 4 policemen put on trial. Stanley moved it to a different county, Ventura, and then that resulted in 3 acquittals and 1 hung jury on the police officer who was photographed doing most of the beating. The jury couldn't unanimously agree. So you have no one was convicted of beating Rodney King. Rodney King, there's no justice because he got beat up, but there's no conviction. And then before that, we had 3.5 years of the McMartin School molestation case where Stanley Weisberg, who was a brand new judge with no experience whatsoever, he was like 43 years old, they put him in charge of this high-profile case. Again, that results in 2 trials and 2 mistrials, 2 hung juries, and no one's convicted and no one is acquitted. No one's acquitted and no one is convicted. The district attorney just decided not to do a 3rd trial. That's Stanley Weisberg. Stanley Weisberg. He's Mr. Hung Jury. He did get the Menendez's convicted on his 2nd attempt. Took him 3.5 years to do it. All right? And then when you look at the witnesses who testified for the prosecution, I mean, they all lied. I mean, I don't think one of them ever told the truth. And that includes all of Lyle Menendez's Princeton friends. So you can just forget about trusting anyone that went to Princeton. My God, they're all liars. This Glenn Stevens, I mean, he said he was valedictorian of his prep school. Liar, liar, pants on fire. He only was there for 3 years. You can't be a valedictorian unless you attend all 4 years in the college prep school. So he said he had a high GPA, so he deserved it. So he put that on his resume that he was valedictorian of his class to get into Princeton University. And it's not true. He wasn't valedictorian of his college prep class, but that's what he put on his resume. So is that a little lie? Yeah, it's a little lie. But he went to Princeton, and he's a liar. And then we have the coup de grace, of course, is Craig Signorelli, who is the captain of the tennis team at Calabasas High School and also a member of the Calabasas Private Tennis Racket Club, which is, a mile away from the high school. Anyway, this guy's a pathological sociopath. His goals are to go to law school and go to an Ivy League law school and then become a politician. Well, he's injected himself into the Menendez story because he forgets to mention on the stand, and the lawyers are really good not to remind him, that he was arrested for burglarizing 2 homes, one in Calabasas, Michael Warren Ginsburg's house, and John Richard List's house, who lives in Hidden Hills, gated community, where Peter Grossman lives and where Lori Loughlin lives and where, that baseball pitcher that ran over, helped Peter Grossman's wife kill 2 children in the crosswalk. He lives in there. The voice of the Dodgers, he lives in there. That's a CIA compound. And apparently, Eric Menendez, signed a plea agreement that he participated in a burglary there in 1988, and with Craig Signorelli. And allegedly, Lyle was there too in the summer of 1988. That was the summer that Lyle was working in the porn business for his father at Live Entertainment. That summer when he was not at Princeton. He had the summer off. Anyway, what I'm trying to tell you is, look, it's really hard to follow this case because nobody tells the truth. In the case of Roger Smith, let me give an example of perjury that he committed, and none of the lawyers challenged him on it. And I know why they didn't challenge him. One's because they're stupid, and the other is they're not supposed to bring up porn, right? You're doing a case where you have a CEO of a pornography company who's brutally murdered, but we're not supposed to talk about that. We just say he's an executive in the entertainment business, but we don't call it what kind of entertainment it is. It's pornography. It's Noam C. Bloom's pornography. That's the business that Lyle and Jose Menendez were working in. That's what RCA was involved with. All right, so one of the lawyers, I don't know which one, asked on the stand, Roger Smith, who has the exact same name as the fake parole officer for Charlie Manson up at Haight-Ashbury, but neither here nor there. That Roger Smith name's a very popular name. Anyway, they said, I understand that Jose Menendez was opposed to pornography. And he says, oh, yes, he was adamantly opposed to it, as was I. And they said, well, on what basis? He goes, well, for a business basis. He goes, I'm not against it otherwise. So in other words, there's no moral reason that he's against it, but he thinks from a business point of view, pornography he is not profitable. Have you lost your marbles? It's the most profitable thing up there. It's more profitable than Arnold Schwarzenegger's Terminator 2. And Rambo for it's what are you talking about? From a business point of view, selling drugs and pornography and gambling are the zenith of pacification and control. That's number one. I would say porn and drugs and gambling, it's hard to know which one's the winner, right? And so for the chief financial officer that went to Harvard University to say that from a business point of view he's opposed to porn, that's just a bald-faced lie under oath in front of Stanley Weisberg and in front of Leslie Abramson, and she had a chance to redirect, and she didn't. She did not redirect him on that. So you see, it's a circus. Don't believe anything that you hear in a courtroom. Believe me, everything's rehearsed outside, and the whole thing is a charade. The other thing is that the Big Five sporting goods store in San Diego is supposedly where the two Mossberg 12-gauge shotguns were purchased, allegedly. And they were purchased in the name of Donovan Goodrew. Donovan Goodrew, who is a fake Princeton student living in Princeton housing as the roommate of Lyle Menendez, but he works at TGIF, at Thank God It's Friday's restaurant. I don't know if he's a waiter or he's the manager, but he is, everyone's under the impression that he's a Princeton student, and he's not. He's masquerading as a Princeton student and living on the Princeton student housing, living with Lyle. And this guy's driver's license goes missing because when they find out he's a fraud, he's asked to leave. And so his driver's license seems to go missing, and then that's what's used to purchase the two shotguns down in San Diego, which is a good 2 hours away from the murder scene, times 2, so it's 4 hours of driving. And you know that was done on a Thursday, so that would mean that Lyle and Eric spent half a day going down to San Diego using the fake ID of Donovan and Goodray. I mean, it's feasible, it's possible, but it is an half a day project. And then you have to believe they used a fake address in San Diego, which was false, and that's on Form 4473 of California State. And then Amanda Greer is the saleswoman, and she sells the two rifles for $199.99 each. It's a $400 purchase. I don't know if they buy any ammo. And then you have to believe they drive back to Beverly Hills, and then the next day, Friday, they go on an all-day fishing expedition out of Marina del Rey, shark fishing for 7 hours. So they spend the whole day on Friday with their parents. Then they come home. Then the next day is Saturday, and their parents invite over some friends from Calabasas, because remember, they lived 2.5 years in Calabasas. It's the only people they know are in Calabasas. They don't know a single person in Beverly Hills. So they invite their friends over. And then the kids go out to see Batman at the Century Plaza, which is, like a mile away. It's pretty close. And then at 10 p.m. at night, the Menendez parents are killed. So, meanwhile, Kitty is seeing a psychiatrist back in Princeton, New Jersey. Then when they move to Hollywood, she sees another psychologist, Edwin S. Cox. She only sees him once a week for 16 weeks. Then she pivots to Westlake Village because they moved to Calabasas, right? And that's west. That's west about 25 miles west. So it's not convenient to go see Edwin Cox anymore. So then she goes and sees this guy named Les Summerfield. Les Summerfield of Westlake Village, which is next door to where Newbury Park is, where Jose Menendez spends time in Newbury Park, and Canoga Park, which is closer to where they rented a home in Calabasas. Whilst they're building a 9,000 square foot home on 13 acres of land in Hidden Hills. You remember where all those creepy people live is in Hidden Hills? So Craig Signorelli, he testifies for the prosecution that he thinks he heard Eric Menendez confess to killing his parents. But you can't believe a single thing. This guy's a pathological liar, okay? And he went to University of California, Santa Barbara, but he took a leave of absence to work with the police, and he wore a wire. He wore a wire to try to get Eric Menendez to incriminate himself, which Eric did not do. He denied killing his parents at a dinner that they went to in Malibu. Well, it's closer to Pacific Palisades if you want to know. The restaurant, I forgot the name of it. But the point is that he said Eric was his best friend. Well, what kind of a best friend makes you guilty of the burglary that you know the people that you're burglarizing? I mean, they went to school with this John Richard List's son, and then they burglarize his house. And Eric Menendez doesn't know him. He's from New Jersey. But Craig does, because he grew up in Calabasas. So you burglarize a friend, his friend's house, and then he blames it on Eric Menendez. And then he wears a wire to try to entrap Eric Menendez, which he's unsuccessful doing. So anyway, don't even get me started on the Jerome Oziel psychologist and his patient that he's having an affair with whilst he's married and living in Encino in a 6,000 square foot home, and doping his girlfriend, who then he breaks up with. And then that's when she goes to the Beverly Hills Police Department 7 months after the murders and says that Eric Menendez did it because my ex-boyfriend, who's married, said so. It's pretty much the case for the prosecution. Have a great day. Talk to you soon.